Um, well, I've been doing my best in the meantime to actually play through the game, but unfortunately, I am stuck. And
Yeah, this is the worst part of the game. Do you
Any
know
questions?
this is another great thing of intent versus what players will see, and the what happened here was I sort of misjudged how much players would ask questions that are more generic rather than the most recent stuff.
Hmm,
The solution to this is actually if you go to Dylan
okay,
and ask him something much earlier, uh, he'll give you some more generic hints about your other clues, and one of them is exactly what you need.
okay, interesting. Because I was trying to go back through Dylan's um, questions here. Like he says, he saw some kind of creature, but I'm sort of looking for yeah, like
Yeah, that's the thing.
opportunities.
You're looking at the current green. Well, see what happened originally was as well.
Hmm.
The green letters didn't exist in like my alpha build,
Right.
and then I realized that no one on the team could beat the game without them, apart from one. So then I added the green letters, but they kind of throw you because they make you think, oh well, I have to just find the green letters and find the right puzzle for it. But the in the first place, the game actually wasn't. This particular part of it wasn't supposed to be like that, which is why it all got confused. If you ask him, well, ask him about downtown or therapist, and you might get the clue.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, let's see. Yeah, the last place I remember going somewhere specific. Maybe you know where I mean. Okay, so that is now where I can present. I mean,
Yeah, you can represent at any time. If you click therapist as well, that gives another clue as to what he's looking for.
okay. And just real quick, Dr. Tronic, thank you so much for the 34 consecutive month resubscription. Super appreciate it. How are you doing today? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess. So, at what point? I guess with the addition of the green text, it's sort of I started treating that as the hint of like this is when I can present something to somebody. So
Yeah,
was
so
it?
that's what it was for, right? But
Mhm.
but then it just so happened that there's one part in Dylan's hints, which is, you just saw it in Downtown and Therapist. He
Yeah.
has a green hint within his generic. So I mean, each ghost has little sequences, and each sequence has some sort of puzzle. Something you're going to present evidence for. But
Mhm.
he also has one that's just inside his inventory. So there's one word in there that adds the final clue that's not so clear.
Ah, it's, I'm so stuck on this.
Well,
I
it's
don't know.
something that you've used before is the thing. And you actually used it to the other person. He has a plan, right? And you gave this piece of evidence to the other person he was planning with. Click therapist, and maybe you'll get it from that.
I did. I thought I did.
Did you read? Well, you were talking to me at the same time. Maybe if you
Yeah, mom's a therapist. We had some kind of plan, but I
yeah.
don't. I don't know what to do with that. I saw that. I don't like.
Uh, Click on Dylan in the hints in the detective hints. I think that might also help.
I,
Because the thing is,
I
if
mean,
you do it the other way around, this actually
yeah,
isn't that hard. But if you do it this way around, if you start to area first and solve it that way around, then it becomes hard because you write it off and stop thinking about it.
yeah. It was found by a cop in her office. I, I, I'm really sorry. You're just gonna have to tell me. Like, I do not see what I'm missing here.
I think if you click Office as well, it says something for Office on the detective himself.
I
Doesn't he
did.
say, "Wait, goodbye," and go to him and say,
Yeah, someone remembers.
"Yeah, they." You know what? Maybe it is just more clear in my head. Because know the whole story yourself. It The thing is, they both tell you area and Dylan both hint that they were meeting each other in the office. So
Yeah.
that was their plan, but it just didn't come across. Because you got 72 hours and in your own head, you're like, oh, I know the whole story. Well,
Yeah.
obviously Dylan's going to be in the office. That's where he's going. So, but
Yeah.
but then like to actually convey that to the player obviously requires playtesting that we didn't have time to do. So this is definitely like the hardest part of the game. That was, I think we actually the reason we came second is probably because of that because we got docked points on overall and fun a lot for the fact that people couldn't complete the game. I think.
I do see a lot of comments saying this is amazing. I didn't finish it, and I
Hmm.
wonder. I wonder how many people specifically got stuck at this part. Um,
Yeah, because if you look at our score spread as well, compared to the game that won LD,
yeah.
they on average are getting like 3.2s, 3.3s. We have like four categories at like 3.7, 3.8, but
Hmm.
then just that fun is like it goes down to like 3.1 or something, and then the overall goes down just low enough to not win us the thing. So I really think it was the fact that like people get stuck here.
Okay. Okay. So the plan was to meet, and I was just I was getting hung up on it. It's just like I thought I already knew that. I thought I already had that information. I didn't realize that like I don't see the sort of leap you're supposed to take to get from I had a plan to meet with my mom to we were going to discuss a kidnapping. Like,
Well, he wasn't going to discuss a kidnapping. He
or
got
sorry.
kidnapped.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think that's definitely on me for just sort of skimming the text there. So there was a
He was
kidnapping.
en route to meet his mum, and then he
Okay.
got thrown into he got kidnapped.
Right. And okay, so like that's when we're gonna get the word truck that we present to Rendell, and
Yeah,
then the
exactly.
kidnapping is the crime that we present to Temzin. Okay, so like now all the things are starting to click into place, but it was just this one here. Like this felt like the only time where I just really was missing a like I didn't see a reason to present therapist to Dylan again because
Yeah,
I was
you
because his
already
text.
know.
Yeah, exactly. And his text had advanced to the point where it seemed like he was talking about some kind of creature. And it's like, well, okay, so I need to talk to Dylan about a creature. I didn't realize there was still an opportunity to present a different piece of information. So,
Yeah, so because on the back of the Dylan card as well, it gives you the word office.
yes.
This is sort of a 50-50 problem where a lot of people go to Dylan and
Hmm.
immediately just ask him about the office because he's the new guy and that's the new
Yeah.
information. So they just get that one for free. Whereas like half of people, they get all the way here to like CCTV and then they're just like, what? Like office is just written off in their head as it should be, right? Like it's just poorly designed. Um, the big three I'd say are hard in the
Hmm.
game are one people really some people don't get Altman as a person.
Hmm.
Having watched lots of streams of this, some people really struggle with the fact that downtown
Hmm.
is where Tamsin is because he's just saying his shop's there. It's not specifically related to Tamsin. So
Right.
I know she asked where am I, but
Hmm.
but it's not downtown isn't that clear.
Right.
And the other one is some. I thought this one was more clear, but the thief who breaks into the apartment.
Hmm.
But in my head, I see thief as like the D&D class that unlocks doors and stuff like that. So when she says, "Oh yeah, he got in without a pass," like how did he get in the room? For me, that's like, oh, obviously a thief can get in a room. But some
Hmm.
people just like did not get that. With like even in me and chat hinting at them, like they just still don't get it. So yeah, I think we struggled a lot in terms of what I was thinking in my head and what people understood. But that I mean, obviously, especially the fact that we've got voice acting for the whole game.
Hmm.
Once it's in, right? Like there's no getting around. Like the dialogue that's written is the dialogue that's going to be in the game. So if you miss something in a jam time frame, that's it. You can't quickly amend it and put a new
No.
line in or like fix the puzzle. Like that, it is how it is. So yeah, like that really hurt us, but we still did all right.
I would say so. I mean, like the overall, the presentation, like everything else about the experience is so well put together, and like the mystery is really compelling. It's just these like few small um disconnects that ultimately like I don't know, like if you had the opportunity to make those changes now, um have you thought about like how you would present some of these hints like in the game to players
Oh yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, there's loads of onboarding things that I'd love to change. Like, I think for a start, um, the first of all, even when typing, some of the characters aren't wide enough. Like I, it's hard to click the I. I don't like that. I don't like that. You've got sort of at the beginning, people don't realize what the list of available words is. So people open up the Ouija board and start writing hello, okay, hi, who's there, me. You know, people
Mhm.
write all kinds of things into it, which are not valid, and it doesn't. The game doesn't tutorialize it. Doesn't like you've just got to trial and error it, which is obviously not great onboarding. Um, the elaborate versus keep going. People who played Phoenix Wright get it. Everyone else does not get it at all. Like they don't understand the difference between like hold it and next
Yeah,
if they've not
yeah.
played that. And then yeah, those few changes about. I mean, I would have made Dylan. Obviously, there's several points in which you can ask him those questions. You can hint him on those.
Mhm.
So I would have added an extra string to each one of those that was like, where was I going to meet my mum again or something like just in every single one to bait out that answer a bit more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's lots of little things I would have done differently, but where it's very likely we'll do another version of this. And when I say another version, I don't mean like a post LD or
Mhm.
a fix. I mean like a start again from scratch and do it at a bit
Mhm.
more of a grandiose level because
Yeah.
it had really good reception.
I mean,
And I just love
the
Phoenix Wright.
ah, yes. I mean, I guess the one thing that I don't know if you wanted to play more of a role or less of a role is the Ouija board.
Yeah, because it becomes this thing where you just start clicking it right, and then it kind of makes the whole mechanic like pointless, other than as a visual effect.
Hmm.
Um, but the fact is, if you had to type everything in like letter by letter, it'd be an. I mean, you can. I've seen people beat the whole game like that. Um, but I mean, it is ultimately a gimmick versus like say Phoenix, right? You've just got your evidence.
Yeah.
You just click the button and it presents it. Um, but at the same time, it's quite a nice aesthetic. So I don't know how to solve that problem. And you're right, that is a problem of having a mechanic just for the sake of it looking good,
Mhm.
and but instantly invalidating it by having a notepad. Um, but there is one thing: if you hold down click when you type, when you auto type, everything types in much faster. So at least that
Oh,
if you try it now, like boom, 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 boom.
yeah, I did just try it on the stream.
Yeah.
Ah.
Oh, here's Mike Biffle's cameo.
Oh, sorry.
This is Mike Biffle. I don't know if you know
Uh,
Mike Biffle.
the name isn't
He
immediately
made uh,
familiar.
he made Thomas Was Alone, John Wick Hex. Um,
Oh.
he made Tron Legacy. He's in a bunch of. He's like a Brit. If you're in the British indie scene, everyone knows him. But he's not like he's not like Notch. You know what I mean? He's not like a household name, but like he's pretty well known name, especially within the UK game dev scene.
Hmm. I guess the
He's,
like I was familiar with Thomas Was Alone. I couldn't remember. I couldn't place the name. Like I've listened to a good number of like indie dev podcasts, so I know like some indie dev names, but I don't think I've heard one with him in it. So that's really
yeah,
cool,
I think
though.
he actually does have a podcast um with a couple of like an old IGN reviewer and someone else. I forget who it is. I've never. I don't really listen to podcasts, but I'm pretty sure he's got one. But like, yeah, obviously, no one's gonna know everything. But
Mhm.
the few people who do know this are just like, wait, what the hell? Why is Mike Biffle? Because I think he's got like 80k Twitter followers or something. It's a bit random for him to be just randomly like in my little Ludum Dare game.
Right. I mean, that's really neat. I do have to ask, like, what's the story behind that? How did you get to cameo appearance?
I tweeted, "Hey, I think this game I'm making needs voice acting to really sell it. Are there any amateur voice actors around who are willing to jump into a Ludum Dare?" And he immediately replied, "Like, I'm in an airport. Let's go." So then I just that's why Baphomet has so few lines, because I he's like, oh wait, yeah, you've already told him. I was about to.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, spoilers, but yeah, he only has like 5 lines of dialogue because I didn't want to do too many. I didn't want to write like a little cameo character that we'd have to do art for just for Biffle,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
also didn't want to give him too many lines. Or the fact is, he's got quite a family-friendly brand. I didn't want to get. I would have written the character darker, but I didn't want to make Mike Biffle have to like say some really dark shit as Baphomet. So I kept it a bit on the lighter side, and we made the character a bit more like Disney villainish rather than like pure evilish.
Right.
Um, but and then the other one that's not got as many lines is Altman, and that's because we needed sort of a red herringy character. If I gave it too many lines at the beginning, people would think he's got more to him when he doesn't. But also, he was voiced by Sheepolution, who
Yes.
he does a lot of Ludum Dare. He's won a couple times, but or maybe like three. I think he's won like 10 medals or something.
Right.
But he obviously when he's jamming, he only has a certain amount of time he can give to us to handle his voices. So I had to sort of be conscious of what he could do.
Yeah. No, I've had Sheep Pollution on for like 2 interviews in the past. So, um,
Yeah, he's a really funny guy.
yeah, I remember the games always have a tinge of humor to them. Um, and okay, I know it's because I'm not necessarily like 100% focused on the game, but I think I'm stuck again because I've got this information, but now I don't know who to
So
present it
this
to.
one again,
Hmm.
the text doesn't go green. It's Dylan again, but I forgot to make the text green, so that's why you can't
Oops.
find it.
Okay. Let's head back over to Dylan then. Um, yeah, so I guess obviously like Phoenix Wright was a big inspiration with the game, and you have some plans to make like some other version of this. And I guess so are you going to be like working with the same team? Like was that a decision like just based on how well this was received?
So what's going to happen? Well, here's the current plan. Oh, Chrissy Codes is here. Well, Chrissy, who is the voice actor for Aria,
Hmm.
is a shoe in. Like I want her in no matter what because like as soon as she laid down the vocals, I was like, okay, right, this is becoming a top tier game before my eyes. Like her vocals were so good and like brought the game to life that I was instantly sold. And she's just really nice as well, so I just want her on the team. Um, so then we've got Atmospherium. So Atmospherium, I've done every single Ludum Dare with them since December 2014. So we've done tons and tons of games together. We've probably done over 20 games together. I have confidence in Atmospherium to be
Hmm.
able to do banger 10 out of 10 tracks occasionally. See, that's the thing. There are some musicians you work with them and everything they put out is incredible. Atmospherium, well, it is the nature of doing game jams
Hmm.
as opposed to other tracks, but he's hit and miss. But when he's hit. So I think that if I just give him enough time, he can actually make like a banging soundtrack for this.
Hmm.
Um, so I want to work with him on the basis that if he keeps putting in, if he just keeps, I've told him just churn out tracks and tracks and tracks, and if normally the stuff he makes, we know within the first like 5 minutes whether it's going to be great or not. So if it's not great, just throw it away and try again another day, and we've got we can we'll just keep throwing darts until they land. I think he'll be able to do a banger soundtrack if we do it. So then Lowry, who does the art, I think she's got more on her plate, but I think she's down. But the other thing is, I'm not an art director, and she does good assets, but she's an asset artist, right? She's not an art director, and she's
Mhm.
definitely not a technical artist. She's an illustrator. Um, so someone who's done a few games of us is Zephyr, aka Zephy by aka Angela Her, and she is sick at art direction and uh, engineering. Like she writes her own shaders. Like she's really good in general. She can do some really sick effects. Um, so I definitely want to bring her on in some capacity because she's interested in the game. She's on board on the
Mhm.
as long as the story's good. That's her rider. Is as
Mhm.
long as you make the story good, I'm on board. Um, so yeah, so we're yet to figure out because right now I just need to white box a new version of the game, but with more of the mechanics. So I want to have like crime scene examining more of the Phoenix Wright stuff that
Mhm.
makes that stuff more compelling. Um, and then Zephyr's gonna have a stab at just doing some shader stuff that'll look really cool. Um, and then yeah, I just need to work out like how much time both Lowry and Angela have together. Uh, what we'll be doing, like, will Angela be doing like cutscenes and UI and engineering and art directing, or will she be doing art as well? And uh, will Lowry just be doing like the kind of stuff you're seeing here, like draw the characters? And
Mhm.
I also don't know how well she animates either. So yeah, there's a lot of considerations that elevate between you got to think about when you go from a jam release to a console release. Um, but obviously, everyone put a ton of work in, everyone tried really hard, and everyone succeeded really well. So, you know, I, I'm not the type of person who's going to be like, "Oh, thanks for getting me a cool prototype. Bye. I'm running off with a different team now." Like, if the team want to be in the game,
Mhm.
the team, at the very minimum, get the chance to put like have a go at the white box and make sure they can produce stuff of an absolute professional quality, which I think they all can. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I mean, ultimately though, if we're going for publishing funds, you know, if if something isn't working,
Mhm.
then I'm not going to tank the whole project just to be polite. If like one person's stuff isn't up to scratch, then we'll have to think about either. Well, we'll have to come up with some solution to that, and that might be like bringing on someone else to help them, or it might be like working with someone else. But I, I'm definitely down like to give everyone who works on this game like a proper innings to figure that out, and that's why I've actually already had a publishing offer, and I'm not taking it just because I don't want to commit to a team that yet before I know how all the inner workings are going to do. I want to know exactly how the structure of their final game is going to be, who's working on what, how it's all going to be divvied up and stuff like that before I commit to taking money for the game. So I want to just make a longer, like a case one, case two Phoenix Wright style game where you get like the tutorial
Mhm.
plus a proper case, see how that goes, and then pitch it, or take the funding that is available.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm. Am I understanding correctly that you got a publishing offer based on the Ludum Dare, like a publisher saw the game in the state it is
Uh,
now, or?
Publisher didn't even see. Publisher uh, saw that I won and said, "Oh, okay, are you finally going to do another game? Then we'll fund it." Because my last game was like uh, 7 years ago, and I've just been sort of hopping around stuff, doing ports and stuff, and I've had a lot of interest over the years of people trying to fund my next thing. But the thing is, my last game, I committed really hard to it. Goodbye. Yeah, I committed really hard to it, and then the thing is, it was critically acclaimed. We got all 9 out of 10s and stuff like that. But then I'm really terrible at marketing, and I didn't sign with a publisher. I self-published, and it turns out if you can't like promote your own stuff, then you're gonna have a bad time, even if you got a good product. So the game, I mean, it paid everyone. You know, everyone got
Hmm.
paid off, and it broke even. But you know, it didn't make me a bajillionaire or anything. And after sinking years into it, I was kind of like, well, you know, if I'd just done porting for those 3 years, I would have made
Hmm.
4 times as much money. So why am I here, like, putting my soul out and because when you port,
Hmm.
you know, so you do your job, you make sure the game runs at 60 frames per second, and if the game flops, then well, that's just the game flopped.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel bad about it. That's just that's what the product was. And as long as I did my job and the game runs performantly and it came out on time, then
Hmm.
I'm happy, even if the game completely like tanks. Whereas if it's my game and the game doesn't do well, then you know I'm gonna feel that in my soul and spirit and heart and die over it and not enjoy my time. So it's like, well, if I'm gonna wear my heart on my sleeve and
Hmm.
not get paid as much for it, like why am I even doing this? So
Hmm.
unless I have a guaranteed product. So I've basically been sitting. The only reason I did my first game was because it won a Ludum Dare medal.
Hmm.
I like it won Gold Innovation, and so this time I'm just like, I've just been sitting for years and years going, well, not this one, not this one. I'm not going to build up this one. But for the first time in a long time, it's like, well, I love Phoenix Wright.
Hmm.
The people love it. The especially the good thing about it that people love is
Hmm.
that people like the story.
Hmm.
And if people are like the story and they're getting addicted to the game, I know they're getting stuck, but if people are like getting really into the game, then that shows me that like the main important part of a VN like this is the ability to write a story. So if I've done it and shown that I've been able to do it, then
Hmm.
I've convinced myself that there is some like viability to making a product out of this. Um, which is good because a lot of the other genres I do, I make games that are too hard, and then uh, this is more like if you add a hint system that
Hmm.
gets rid of that problem, and I can just as long as I write an interesting story, then I get to basically make a game that I love that's really easy to make in my opinion. It's really quick
Hmm.
turnover, not that too mechanically demanding. I've written all my own porting tools so we could put it on console really quick. It's nice, short, sweet. The bulk of the work is just writing, which is quite fun.
Hmm.
So to me, it's kind of a really good project, and so I think for the first time in a long time, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And even if it does go bad,
Hmm.
even if it sells nothing, I'm not going to feel bad that I invested 3 months in a cool game and no one bought it, but whatever, I
Hmm.
made a cool game. Like that's not going to bother me as much as sinking 3 years into something. So yeah, I think from that perspective, like I'm very down for this, and I think that's why. Well, the publisher who did offer me
Hmm.
was pretty aware straight away. Like, oh hey, well, if you're down to making, if you basically won Ludum Dare, okay, you didn't win, you came second, but if you're that high up, just make the game, we'll fund it.
Hmm. No, I mean that definitely sounds like a fantastic opportunity. I mean, I hope that it is something that like everything comes together and sort of works as you said. I guess the um a lot of it is going to be contingent on because I played through the sort of first batch of Phoenix Wright games. They released like a triple collection of them on iOS way back when.
Yeah.
So that was my exposure to the series. And
And one, are you about to say that 1, 2, and 3 were absolutely banging, and then like the ones all after that are kind of they're like okay.
I mean, that's the thing is I just don't have exposure to the ones after that, so I don't know. Um,
Well, you're not missing out on much. Like, it's not like some series completely drop off.
yeah,
It's not that it completely fell off. It was just more of the same, and also they got rid of the really compelling thing about Phoenix, right? Is you have the whole Phoenix and Edgeworth like rivalry and that whole
yeah,
story, and they got rid of it and put new characters in, and they just weren't as good, and it was a bit more like they went a bit off the rails with the whole psychic abilities and stuff like that. Which I
right.
know the irony here is that I'm pitching a psychic game, but like they kind of went they kind of hammed it up a bit too much, in my opinion.
And this, you're saying they went off the rails from when they, in the first series of games, they literally have like a grown woman possess the body of a child and like all this just absurd stuff. And it gets even more crazy
Yeah,
than that.
yeah. So, well, I mean, that's just sort of the era of Japanese games, right? Like the, I think that bit hasn't really aged that well, right? Which is something that's another thing that we're gonna have above that is we don't have that weird aspect that your ex girlfriend is inhabiting the body of her like younger sister who definitely shouldn't be your love interest. Like, and and the thing is as well because I was a kid when I played these games.
Yeah,
I was so I mean I was like 11 at the time, so I was somewhat oblivious, but also didn't care about those aspects of the game.
yeah,
Whereas now it's kind of harder to forgive that part of the game, right? Even though the actual like trial parts of it are great.
yeah.
So I think that's something that we can do is not make it perverse.
You know, it's a high bar. Try not to trip on it.
Yeah.
But genuinely, though, like in terms of the functionality of the game, I think that the as far as my play experience and why I think I played the first two out of the three. And I think the reason that I ultimately didn't get into the third one was because a lot of it, like I couldn't always hold the whole possibility space in my head, and I couldn't always remember. It's like, which character have I not presented which piece of evidence to? Like I just you run into a similar problem as with most adventure games where you just walk up to each person you could possibly interact with and rub each key item up against them until something progresses, and it doesn't feel like you're making an intuitive leap as it must as much as it is you're just exhausting the possibility space. And I feel
Yeah.
the like the success of a game like this is going to come entirely down to whether people are going to be able to make those leaps in logic, and failing that, how kind is the hint system going to be to give players a hand so they don't feel like they need to do things just by exhaustion, right?
Yeah. The real thing you want to do is you want to make the player feel clever, but
Exactly.
also you don't want to have to make it that hard that the player has to be truly a genius to solve it. Like you you need so at the very least, even if it is pretty easy, you need it to make it compelling so that even the players who are like, yeah, I knew that from the start, they're gonna still because we get a lot of players who play this and we're
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm the killer after like 1 minute, and so but then they still enjoyed the journey, right? So
Mhm.
whereas like some players, they type in the word chapel and then
Mhm.
they'll like, wait, I'm the kid. Like at the very end, they get that. Like so, so
Yeah.
there's a big like wide breadth between like when people get what's going on and when people don't. Some people clock on all the hints immediately. Some people, there was someone who left a comment in the comment section saying, if you were the killer all along, you really should have had more hints about that. And I was like, there's like 30 in the game, you shouldn't notice them, like, which is, I can't write that for everyone. Um,
That
but so, go on, what are you gonna say?
Oh no, just it's hilarious because foreshadowing is this incredible double-edged sword where like the more genre savvy you are, the more it's like, oh, first hint, got it, I'm the killer. Or it's like you can just be completely oblivious to every single hint that's happening, and you're just determined like, I'm the protagonist. I can't possibly be the killer. It must be someone else. I must need to like find someone who it is. Um
Yeah, exactly. And I tried to write all of the foreshadowing in such a way that it could conceivably be interpreted as not foreshadowing too. Like, I wanted even the people who were going to get it immediately to be like, but benefit of the doubt, maybe I'm just reading too much into this,
Mhm,
and have
mhm.
it that the other people could just not read into it at all, and yet still have it. Yeah, you gotta walk that fine line, and that there's plenty of that stuff I'm gonna have to be careful of.
And I guess all I can say is the other fine line you're going to have to walk is, I was just talking about genre savviness. Like, please just promise me when you're writing this, don't break tropes or genre conventions for the sake of it. Like, I've seen shows that are saying like, oh yeah, our show is like I don't know. There was some anime that I got recommended that was called like Planet With. Yeah. And the person who was hyping it up was saying like, "Oh, it's incredible. It breaks genre tropes." And it's like, but it did it to no end. Like you have this scene where this like evil father figure has like finally been defeated, and he's like, "Tell me what were like my sons? What did he want to say to me?" And the main character is just like, "I don't remember." And it's like, "Oh, you broke the trope. You did something unexpected." It's like, yeah, but that's so profoundly unsatisfying. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I see
It
what you mean.
was there is a you want to avoid, like, you don't want to play too much into things because then anyone who's genre savvy just like clocks it too quickly. But on the other hand, you don't want to go out of your way just to avoid the trope and then end up with just something nonsensical. So I
Yeah,
guess tropes exist for a reason.
yeah, exactly. I think as well, like especially you're talking about like in Phoenix Wright, Game Three
Hmm.
really did start this sort of going off the rails thing where it's suddenly like loads of flashbacks to the distant past mixed with like, oh, here's this character you know, but did you know that she used to be a painter in 1990 or something? It like starts just doing all of this weird stuff that, whereas the first ones, I mean, the very first case in Phoenix Wright, it literally opens with a cutscene where
Hmm.
you see the actual killer, and then he points to Larry Buzz, your defendant, and goes, "I'll pin it on him."
Yeah.
Like it literally is that simple. Like you know everything that's in the trial, you
Yeah.
just have to prove it. So
Yes.
it just it's not trying to trick you whatsoever. There, it's just is exactly what it says on the tin. Um, I think for us, the intro, I'm gonna try and make it interesting by making the actual plot around it. I mean, I can give you the little scoop. The thing I have pictured at the minute is that the first case, um, I, I basically I want Chrissy's character to be with you throughout the whole game. So I need her to die at the beginning. So I want you to already know her,
Hmm.
so my plan is you get arrested for her murder, but it wasn't actually you. You get detained in jail,
Hmm.
and then while you're in jail, you construct a makeshift seance board out of like cigarettes that you found in the cell and like a
Hmm.
piece of paper that you fashion into a board. So I want the tutorial to feel cool by making it sort of this. Oh, I'm not fully into the game yet. I'm using like a, and then when you get into the actual game, when you prove you'll speak to the ghost and be able to like, you'll find a way to prove that you are innocent and find the real killer, and then that explains why you can't go between crime scenes in the first bit and why
Hmm.
you can't like talk to the detective or anything.
Yeah.
And then in the next like scene,
Yeah.
the next trial, that's when it gets into the main game where you get, it opens up more mechanics. You can move around and you have your like real Ouija board, and then it's like you feel like you've unlocked a reward and stuff like that. So I want to, but I have 5 trials in mind right now, and all of them are just one sentence, and the one sentence is the twist. Like, hey,
Right.
why is this one interesting? And
Hmm.
I think I have at least 3 really quite interesting twists there that people aren't gonna suspect immediately, but they're not completely far fetched. Like one of them might be a bit hard to understand, but I have to sell it quite well. But yeah, they're not going completely off the rails. I just want to. So in terms of trope subversion,
Hmm.
I want the originality to lie there, and like the the twists are going to be the thing that make people interested, right? Being like, oh, I could never have expected that. So I want those to be really good, rather
Yeah.
than like, oh, is it Ghost A or is it Ghost B? Like, which one was the killer? Like, the murder mystery stuff thing isn't that interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to do the whole what is that? There's a Netflix Knives Out. I feel like Knives Out like went a bit too like, oh, the killer was not actually the killer. It was, well, I'm not going to spoil Knives Out for anyone, but I feel like that like overdid it a bit much there. So I'm not going to go that far, but yeah, I think there's just some nice little twists without completely subverting the whole genre, making it silly, making it still intuitive. I don't know. There's a lot to navigate here, and mainly it's going to require a ton of playtesting
Yeah.
because I need to watch like 100 people play this game to actually like see that they get it and they don't get stuck.
I think that it's yeah, it is very difficult. Like it's more than a game design challenge at that point. It's just it's a writing challenge. Like you're trying to construct something that is going to feel narratively satisfying. Like the best you can hope for is that the audience is figuring it out in tandem, right?
Yeah.
With the plot events. Like I think it's unsatisfying when when the audience knows something that the characters in the story don't know. So I'd almost wonder if there's like a way to reward players who can short circuit the solution. If you just happen
Well,
to figure it out from the very first hint, then
yeah. Well, that's something actually said. Someone said that on our itch.io page today.
Mhm.
I reckon they probably worked out truck. I reckon the only ones you can really work out in this game early are
Mhm.
truck and candle, right?
Mhm.
Because what's that flickering light? Well, it's a
Yeah,
candle.
yeah,
Or what was the type of vehicle? A truck. You're not gonna guess how did the person get into the room? Thief. Or you're not
no,
gonna
yeah,
guess what other creature was in the room? Sheep. You're not gonna guess that, right? So
right.
like there's only a couple of ones that could actually conceivably be short circuited, and
Mhm.
I think the ones the ones that are I purposely didn't let them short circuit it because it would completely ruin the game for them to as soon as Aria talks about a candle to
Mhm.
let you skip to the very end of the game. Um, it's something that I could potentially plan for, but I mean, then you got to think about the logic of sequence breaking. Like, if I type in this word too early,
Yeah,
will it entirely break the game because then now without other evidence they need or whatever, they've skipped a sequence or something. They've skipped. So, yeah, there's a lot of. I'm leaning towards don't let them do it
Mhm.
unless maybe there's specific circumstances where they could conceivably guess it and we allow it, like truck, for instance, in that
Mhm.
case. Um, or maybe there could even be ones where the word is on the list, but then that gets into this dangerous territory of like you're breaking your own rules, right? Like there's the rule that hey, the words have got to be on the list. As soon as you tell them, hey, the word can be anything, then they're going to
Mhm.
type everything and anything into the board forever, and they're going to
Yeah,
take all like yeah. So that's the problem there. I prefer that to be restricted to Easter eggs. I'd like to put a lot of Easter eggs into the board though.
right.
Um, or maybe more generic but even putting generic dialogue in, if you let everyone respond to the word hello or something,
Mhm.
then suddenly, they're going to be typing hello and all sorts of things to everyone all the time. Are going to be wasting a lot of their own time. Whereas when they know the stuff's in the notepad, they're only typing what they know they can type.
Yeah, I suppose like one simple way to force players to use the Ouija board at least a little bit more would be like after you've typed it once, it becomes available as a like quick option. Like
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it flashes yellow, and then once you do it, once you've typed it in, it becomes a yeah. I that's potential. That's a potential one. Um, I also think that I think I'd like to have like a mode at the beginning where they can choose like what level of hints they want, which they can adjust
mhm.
on the fly at any time. It'd be like a
Yeah.
hint menu. But like one would be, do you want the green text at all?
Mhm.
One would be, do you want little ticks to appear next to all the evidence that's already been, finished?
Right.
So that it's really informing you, hey, this evidence is completely exhausted. There's no point because you were saying in Phoenix Wright 3 that there were too many options and you couldn't keep in mind everything that had happened. If you had a little tick next to your evidence to just simply say, hey, you've already used this,
Yeah.
um, or like the top of the notepad starts to burn up or something like that, like some kind of indication that you no longer need to use those things. Um, but you're right. But Phoenix Wright does that as well. A lot of the time, when a new day starts, they'll throw
Yeah.
out all the old evidence that was irrelevant. Like they won't keep
Yeah.
you with 50 pieces of evidence in your inventory. They'll be like, oh, well, you got your badge again and the autopsy report and one other important thing, and they'll throw the rest out.
Yeah.
Um, so we could think about sort of cycling out the useless evidence. But yeah,
I suppose in terms of like giving hints to the player as well, um, I'm familiar with like something called the universal hint system.
is that there was that game by. Okay, I'm gonna sound like an idiot now. Wait, is it Rob Gilbert? Who? Wait, Monkey Island, the newest Monkey Island. That's Rob Gilbert, right? I think that's his name.
Mm.
Or Ron? Am I being? I don't want to sound completely ignorant here, like being like I'm here like a little dev, like I don't know who made Monkey Island, one of the
It's not
greatest
the
games of
it's
all time.
it is Ron Gilbert. Yeah.
Yeah, Ron Gilbert, right?
Yeah.
So he made a game called maybe something like Thimbleberry. It was like his little indie game. Again, I shouldn't be saying
Thimblewood,
little indie game.
Thimblewood Park.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So from what I've heard, that game has a hint system
Hmm.
that is quite sophisticated, and you just have a phone, and you call up the phone, and you can ask about anything, and he'll give a hint, and then there's four levels to each hint. So then the first one is kind of like, oh, what do I do now? The next one is like, yeah, okay, maybe you should talk to this person. The third one is like, maybe you should ask this person about this thing. And
Yeah.
the fourth one is like, go to this location, talk to this person, and when the third piece of dialogue, present this piece.
Yeah.
It basically just tells you. It's like a wiki at that point.
Yeah.
But
And I do see an incredible value in that. It's Thimbleweed Park, by the way. I had that slightly wrong.
right, okay, yeah,
But because I was going to suggest something along the same lines, is like the first one is just a vague hint. The second one is a little more directed, and then the third layer or fourth layer is just you're stuck. Just tell me what to do, because it saves the player from having to tab out
go
and
on a
look it up.
wiki.
Because that is like the most frustrating thing is that feeling of I don't know, like different players that bothers people to different extents when the information is
Yeah,
like in the
but
game
not
versus you have to
only are
look it
they
up.
having to like get out of like de-immerse themselves from the game
Yeah.
and open up like maybe on Steam they can open up their Shift Tab menu, but on console they're now like on their phone or whatever rather than
Hmm.
playing your game. But on top of that, it's also sort of minorly humiliating because this is if they're seen as this, if I mean ideally in these games when people are succeeding, the goal is to make them feel clever,
Yeah.
so the antithesis of that is to make them feel dumb, right? And that's the one thing no human wants to do is to feel dumb. You can make a human feel weak, and they're not going to care that much about that. But as soon as I think that's the reason a lot of people who don't like who aren't good at maths hate maths. If you aren't good at history, you can
Yeah.
justify it in your head like, yeah, well, I just have no interest in history. I could learn this. I know 1066. I know this date. I just don't care about history. Whereas like people who are bad at maths hate maths because it makes them feel inadequate that they can't. They tried and they didn't manage to do it, and so they come away like I hate maths rather than like I just don't care about that.
Mhm.
So I think like making people feel unintelligent is the worst thing you can possibly do as a game designer. So if you can have a hint system that keeps them in the game, keeps
Yeah.
them off your wiki, keeps them talking to other people or rage quitting, but also doesn't condescend them, doesn't make them feel dumb,
Yeah.
and just gets to the bottom of it. Like, hey, there's no problem you not solving this clue. It's a bit stupid anyway. Like, well done. Here's the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that that is going to be a fascinating challenge, both from a writing and a design perspective. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I would love to keep talking about it. But on the other hand, I did actually want to talk a little bit more about Seance itself. But,
Yep, go on.
well, I don't know. I mean, at this point, I feel like we could do a whole other interview that is just talking more about the game. So it really depends on how you want to how your like your schedule is going, how your time is. I want to be cognizant of that as well.
Well, I'm free as much as you are. I don't know how much you've got because I know you're supposed to be talking to someone else, or maybe you already did talk to someone else. But I'm as free as you. Like, I'm happy to talk for as
Right. I mean, yeah, the other interview was scheduled for 5:30, but I did reach out and they said like, no, 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 if you want to keep going, we're happy to listen in. But I also have to be cognizant of the fact that at some point I've got to have dinner. So I don't know.
well,
Would
you
you?
you don't have to be. If you want to kick me off, you can just be like, "Hey, Alex, go. We get it. We
No,
get
but
the
it's a
point. Say
fascinating
more."
conversation, and I don't want to be kicking you off.
I'm
But
down for whatever. Like, if you want to keep going, we can keep going. If you don't want to keep going, we can stop. I'm really open to whatever.
well, um, more just that like I don't know if we want like there's a typical set of questions I usually ask in an interview, and like we've kind of incidentally covered some of them, but we've mostly talked about inspiration and also plans for the game going forward. Um, so I suppose if we wanted to get to talk a little bit more about the game and its development, um, I wasn't sure if we wanted to extend an opportunity to have any of the other like Atmospherium or the artist Laurie. I'm sorry, how do you say
Larry. Yeah, well,
Lowry?
Atmos is literally in chat right now, so I'm
Yes,
sure
yes.
if he was around, he could hop in. Atmos, do you want to come in? I'll see if Larry's around.
You can drop a invite here in chat. But on the other hand, like if it's not a good time for people, we can maybe try to find another opportunity where we can have everyone on. If now is a perhaps a little last minute.
We also have Chrissy who can attest to how the voice acting, how what it was like being working on my first game that had voice acting and stuff like that. I mean, we've had a little bit of voice acting in the past, but for me, it was entirely new doing it like this and working with someone who's like actually a good voice actor and not just sheep illusion sending me silly takes. So she's probably got some valuable input as well.
Yeah, it did strike me immediately. Like the voice acting in the game isn't just silly game jam voice acting. Like as much as it's fun, absolutely, to have folks doing silly voices. Like um, I think there's at least one other jam that I volunteered to do a voice for, but the voice acting in this sounded downright professional, and that was I think probably a lot of people noticed and picked up on that.
Yeah, we were really lucky with that as well because it was one of the voices. I mean, we got Dylan in 40 minutes before the jam like ended.
Mm-hmm.
We literally found someone an hour and a half before the end of the jam. Um, Rendell, we got really late.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there were miscommunications as well. There was another voice actor who was supposed to do a lot of characters and then completely dipped. And so I had to fill in for loads of people really late. Like I had to, we were just we were literally going through Twitch streams like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you know a voice actor? Do you know a voice actor? And then Rinks, who did Tamsin,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, well, my cousin can voice act. He's my Twitch mod. Hey, do you want to voice act? And he just like laid down a Dylan, and we were instantly like, yeah, that's it. That's our Dylan. Let's do it.
Nice. Yeah, Atmospherium, if you want to join on, by all means. I've got the Discord invite there in chat, and then if you join the Voice General channel, I can add you to live from there. So I guess in the meantime, if you'd like to talk a little bit about your experience on the like development side, like how did this all come together? I guess this is just using like Unity's UI tools.
No, actually, there's no Unity UI whatsoever in here.
What?
What what it is so the most interesting thing here probably is that
Mhm.
the flames,
Yeah,
which is the first thing I did,
yeah.
those are a green screen video of a candle fire that I downloaded and then wrote a chroma key shader
Mhm.
and then turned the green, Q shifted green into orange, and then chromed out a certain level of it into alpha. And if you actually squint, you can see where the original wicks were on the candles that aren't quite in the right place because the candles aren't bent to the same shape as the wicks on the original candles were. But otherwise, I mean, there's a little shader on that thing as well because it's an orthographic camera, so
Mhm.
the making the Ouija board go inwards, only scale in on the left on the top. The, I had to write a shader to do that, and you can see it's not quite perfect. Like you can see the triangles bending all the letters on the board when it goes down onto the table in a sec.
Yeah.
So now like you can see the letters are bent. See the bottom row are going right, and then the top row are going left because that's just the consequence of the two triangles or whatever it is. So yeah, but the stuff sitting on top, like the detective stuff, that is just
Mhm.
a sprite that I've set it to. I put its hotspot, whatever hotspot's called, it's sort of the pivot point
Yeah.
on the bottom right of it, and then I told it on update because I don't care about sort of efficiency in a jam game. On
Yeah.
update, hey, look, calculate the screen bounds and go in the bottom right corner, like just as a transform, and then I just gave it a really high sprite number, and so everything. Then I just I just wrote little trigonometric wobbles and stuff for the ghosts. I just changed the frequencies and stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I don't use a toolkit for that. I just have a line of code for it, and I've got another one for yeah. So that you notice the well, I mean that's essentially what the plectrum's doing. Whatever the planchet's
Time check.
doing
Yeah.
there as well. It's just I just set it to based on where it is x and y wise. Like if it's minus, then it rotates, to a minus to a plus. Sorry,
Yeah.
rotation and vice versa. Between like a 10-degree tilt or something. The on the right screen, the what are they called? The little
Sticky. Oh.
photographs.
Oh. The Polaroids.
Yeah, they pop up that like when they when you hover over them, they pop, and then when you click them, they decide to. I just tell them to go there and go big, and then when they're not pop, they
Yeah.
just go small and go back to their original position and stuff like that. The text is Text Mesh Pro. Uh, I found a cool little feature which I didn't know about before this jam, which is you can set the max display character count, which is
Mhm.
better because before I was having it that when it typed out the letter by letter, um, when it line broke, originally it'd write three letters that didn't line break, and then the fourth letter makes it line break. So it'd be like duh, 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 and then jump down. Whereas
Yeah.
you can just set visibility, so it predetermines all the bounds of all the text, and then just display it changes how many are displaying. So Text Mesh Pro actually like saved me a lot in this jam. I use one of the examples as well. The wiggle, I changed it a bit, but one of the wiggle, I wrote my own wiggle, but one of the wiggles is literally just like stock Test Mesh Pro example wiggle that I've tweaked the values of a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because the exact thing that you're talking about, like the text breaking and going onto a new line, is something that I see like just in game jams all the time, or not even just game jams, but like actually sometimes like full games that people just don't always notice, so they don't always know how to solve that. But I do see the Atmospherium's here in Voice General very patiently waiting, so I'm just gonna join. Hello.
Howdy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. Sorry to keep you waiting there. I just welcome to the stream. And
Yeah, no worries.
yeah, so
Thanks
I
for having
figured
us.
I really appreciate you being able to sort of join in last second here, but I figured I wanted to hear both from Alex on the like technical and design perspective. I also wanted to get the perspective of how the like music and composition came together, because unfortunately I have it muted right now, but it does sound
Mhm.
fantastic. I like the transition. I'll just fade that in a little so folks can hear it. But I would encourage people to play it themselves. And yeah, I just do you want to talk a little bit about like what your process was for creating the score for the game?
Sure. Like with most of our jam games, I've been working with Alex for 10 years at this point. And typically he's got a an idea of how the game's going to play out, and then he gives guidance, and then I guess what that might actually mean for pacing and things like that. So part of it is kind of sending over samples of, does this fit the vibe that we want? Does this fit the intensity? Does this fit the mood? And we knew early on that we were wanting a bunch of, preverb reverse effects on the voices and stuff like that. So I wanted to tie that in with the music as well, to kind of have that ethereal, echoey, not quite natural tone to what's going on. And so did a bit of back and forth to figure out what level of intensity versus awkward, ghosty, unsettling characteristics we wanted. I think ultimately I probably landed a bit heavy-handed on the intensity side for the baseline sound. It can be a bit grating with the more industrial drums going the whole time. But I mean, for a jam game where we didn't see how it was going to piece together till the very end, there's only so much you can predict that. So I think overall, I felt good about that. I did a basic audio script to be able to do smooth transitions between the different music cues, so we could, I really like when the Baphomet music kicks in. You got the violins coming in, give it a bit more organic and emotive tone without necessarily removing the unsettling. So trying to find ways of giving the player a breather. Early on, Alex was pretty clear that, while you're talking with a detective, that should be kind of you catching your breath, you not having the intensity of everything else going on. So it was about figuring out what that flow is. Ultimately, I had a lot of plans for the music, and then the scope of the voice acting blew all of that out of the water. We had over 400 lines of dialogue to edit, audition all the different takes, make sure we had good takes for everything, and then do vocal processing for everything. So there was only so much that I could really let the music remain my focus. I
Mm-hmm.
really had to shift wholesale into that. Especially we had 3 different people voice Dylan by the end of it, and I had done processing on all of it. So like it was just a lot of, trying to race to the finish line, get all the vocal takes in. So
Right.
that definitely overtook it. But all things considered, I no complaints with how it turned out. It's as good as it possibly could have, given all the chaos and time constraints and everything.
I think actually no, it isn't because I messed up the audio listener levels. The music was too loud compared to the vocals, and I didn't notice it because when I quickly set the levels, I set them to the background ambient one. I gave it a quick listen. I didn't play
Hmm.
all the way through again to Baphomet to hear how he would sound compared to his vocals. So he gets like drowned out by his theme almost. And that's kind of true of maybe Rendell, Dylan, those 3 kind of a bit like that, like a bit too much drowned out by the music, and we've had a few complaints about that. But I mean, I could have added sliders, but I did not because I hate doing UI, and it would add another 6 hours to the jam for me to do a UI menu, so I didn't do it.
As much as I want to blame Alex for all of my audio shortcomings, I think all things considered for a jam game, realistic expectations have to take over at some point. But I'll let you take the blame.
I'm very happy to take the blame.
Well, that's very funny. I mean, I'm sorry now that by the time that Baphomet showed up on the stream, I'd tuned it down just to make sure people could hear the voices properly. Because it's one thing for there to be game audio, but there's also specifically talking in the game. So I didn't want that to compete with the interview itself. So I had that turned down. I didn't end up hearing the unique theme. But yeah, I guess like that was sort of why I asked if this was built with Unity UI in the first place, because I figured like, Unity UI tools are actually pretty robust. I'm kind of astonished and surprised that so much of it is custom built. And I guess the last thing I wanted to remark on as well is like when you said that you found the voice for Dylan like an hour and a half before the end of the jam or so, you had other people voicing the character, but it was just that the voice that we're hearing now, that was only settled on that late in.
No, it wasn't that. It was literally we found the final actor within 90 minutes of the jam ending. We had 2 other people before. So one of them was, I don't know if you know him, Pomo the dog, or
Yes.
Pomo the dev on Twitch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he did as a take. The thing was, I didn't convey it very well to him that because he does girl voices on his stream, right? He does like, "Oh, I'm an anime girl" or whatever.
Yes.
So I was like, "So how well can you do boys?" When I said boys, I meant males, not like
Uh,
children.
Not like
But
7-year-olds.
yeah, but that didn't come through to him. So he did the whole like uh sort of Dragon Ball Z character, like, "Hey, I'm down here. Oh no, blah blah blah." And also, like, he
yeah.
has quite a thick accent that doesn't. Well, I mean, yeah, it just doesn't make that much sense that Arya, who's
Mhm.
so well spoken, has a
Mhm.
son who's got a really thick accent. So, like, it kind of didn't work, that one. And then the next thing we tried was slowing down. In fact, no, I'll let Atmos tell this bit because it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we ended up Chrissy did a full voice take for Dylan as well. So she did the voice of Arya. So we thought, hey, if she's playing his mom,
Mhm.
just have her play him as well and then do pitch shifting on it. We did 3 different versions of pitch shift to try to see what we could have. And then it ended up he just sounded super effeminate. And not that that's a negative thing, but there's the line about, "Oh yeah, I there's this cute girl at school," where it seems like I don't know, it felt like it was kind of a mismatch between vibe. And it worked in some of the lines, but then was very obvious other places. And kind of to your point, um, there's a lot of people who do partial voice acting for jam games, but I think with the level of quality that we had gotten with everyone else, we really didn't want to have one character feel mismatched and like, oh, you just threw this together at the last minute.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
especially
so
as
yeah, it
well,
was real
Dylan
tough.
kind of anchors the story, right? Like he's when it gets really dark, so you don't want
Mhm.
that to be like the weakest part of it.
Right.
So
And yeah, and even kind of how we have the music laid out, everyone, all the other ghosts share a single theme for all of them musically, and Dylan has his own and Baphomet has his own. And so like that kind of implies a level of significance and importance that they have. And you really need that focal voice to cut through. So we did have some funny outtakes of the weirdest sounding lines from the pitch shifted Chrissy takes of Dylan that we didn't sneak into the game, but we probably should have just for the fun of it.
Oh man, I wonder if you happen to have any of those. I wonder if I can like play them on the stream.
Let me
I'm
see
like, you
it
must have. We have so. I must. You presumably have everything somewhere, right? I mean, I
somewhere.
think
We had the really good one of Mike Bithell doing a sing-songy, "Okay, thanks, guys," or whatever he says, but after the vocal processing, so it's like a demon being all sing-songy at the end of his vocal takes. Let me see what I can find.
Yeah, I just
in the
I
meantime, while he's
yeah.
all right, while he's looking, I can talk about like we also found. I mean, we found Chrissy on. I'm tempted to say I don't actually remember anymore because it was all blurs together, but it was either late on day one or it was on earlier on day two.
Yeah, she was
Um,
early on. I think other than you getting Mike on early and then that other voice actor, I think she was the first.
yeah, and then we had it. So Rendell was also really late as
Mhm.
well, not nearly as late as Dylan, but Chrissy was like, oh, my friend can also do a good. We were really struggling to find a Rendell because we were. I mean, we both tried ourselves. We were like, well, Atmos, your range of all these characters, if you had to do one of these, it would have to be Rendell, right? Because like you're closest to like that's the tone that you're going to be able to hit best. Um, I tried auditioning for him, didn't work. I mean, I can't do an American accent. We wanted to keep the characters American because we already had like a good Well, also the detective looks, he looks like 1940s America or like 1920s America, right? So it wouldn't make sense for them to all sound British. Apart from Baphomet, you can get away with that because he's Baphomet, right? It's okay to have him have like an English voice actor. But the 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 others of them, I mean, I can't do an American accent. Well, I thought, hey, maybe I could make him go Russian because I can do Russian. Um, so I had a stab at that, but it just wasn't anywhere near as good. We had two people going for the for Altman. We didn't manage to get a pro voice actor for Altman either. But we had Sheepolution, who's Dutch, and my Twitch mod Blay, who's German. And so we were like, well, Altman, the name's Altman. It could just be like he could just be a foreigner who's like in the country and he's got an accent. That's fine. Um, for me, it's weird because Altman is played by Sheep, who's like one of my best friends. So it, I'm just like, well, is that is that bad, or is it he just sounds like Sheep? Like he's not really putting on a big voice. I'm like,
Mhm.
does this sound bad, or does it just sound like I can't tell. I can't look at it objectively because I know him so well.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the voice that went in. I was thinking about maybe we should swap it for Blaze at the end, but we only had like an hour left, so and it worked. I've never heard anyone be like, Altman's voice actor sucks. But then again, like people don't do that about Jan games. They're not that rude. So I don't know people like Altman that much, but I don't know.
I think it's a nice change of pace with his tone. Like it's odd, he does have is he Dutch? I was kind of thinking through just the
Yeah,
accent, but like a knife maker from wherever he's from just happening to show up in whatever cities he's in. Not that, we're telling an immigrant story or anything like that, but like that doesn't feel too odd to have, someone who brings their craft to the big city or whatever have an accent. Um, I don't know. I also just really like sheep, so it's
yeah, we
always
all
fun
love
to have them
sheep.
in the
We
game.
love putting sheep in our games.
Okay, I found those clips. Let me. Is there a good channel for me to like send those over to you?
You can either put it into screen chat or you can also send it to me like just direct message, whatever is easiest.
Okay, yeah, I'll DM you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah, so
that when I saw the therapist saying like my own client, that's kind of when I was already getting suspicious.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
her on that as well. She'll say like, "Oh, you get." The thing is, I didn't want her to be like, my own client, the one who's psychotic," and like, I didn't want her to give it away that much. But like, so I just had to say that you have dizzy spells, which kind of explains why at the end you don't recognize that the
Yeah.
detective is actually a prisoner because you're sort of hallucinating him as your little detective friend.
Okay, so we got two voice lines here. We got one that's called "Really Mad." Let's see.
so
After he
that
came
was
back, he
our
was
pitch shift from Chrissy.
Okay, let's see how well that plays through.
after he came back, he was really mad.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Let me let me increase the volume on that a little bit.
After he came back, he was really mad.
Yeah, it is pretty obvious that that's a pitch shift. And then the other one was the Cheers Rose.
Okay, that sounded okay to me. I'll listen to this through, and if I think it's good, I'll send it to you. I'll be put some reverb and monstrosity onto that, because I'm the world's best actor. All right. Cheers, Rose. Bye.
The second one's a little quiet, but it's boosted as high as it can go, unfortunately. At least on my end.
It sounded fine. I swapped over to your stream audio and it came through fine on that end.
Yeah, I was listening to that too. I think you should also you should get a Chrissy. Have you shown it like a Chrissy Dylan clip and a Pomo clip and a Blade clip? We might have it all.
I don't think I've got Pomo or Blay.
I think I have Pomo.
If you happen to find it, that would be funny. Like I know knowing Pomo's voice because I've had him on as for doing a couple interviews. So yeah, imagining Pomo doing the voice of Dylan. Like I can. So the funny thing is, uh, I have a similar vocal range. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Yu-Gi-Oh Bridge series, like Little Karibo?
Yes, I love the Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge series so much. I've been watching it since like 2006. I watch every episode still. Like it's so good. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge.
Okay, so just it happens to be that I can do a lot of the same voices as Little Karibo. I just happen to seemingly have a similar vocal range. But those are all
Attention, duelist!
attention duelists. My hair is telling me that it's time to enter the castle.
Big brother, is it time for my cameo yet?
Screw the rules. I have money. Like I'm not saying it one to one, but I can only do these sort of like meme voices. So as much as you're saying like, oh, we were looking for a voice actor, and it's like, I desperately want to say like I would have done it, but I also know like it's not what you're going for here. You're not going for meme, silly, funny. Like you're going for something that's more grounded, I guess.
Yeah. And part of it was also like we were trying to find actors that we wanted to have Ludum Dare people as much as possible, just because that's our friend group for this type of thing. And so we had reached out to a few people in the community, but everyone was in crunch time at that point. So it was, oh man, I would definitely like to jump in.
Yeah.
I don't have time to do it. We had a few people that were in that bucket where it would have been awesome to have some of them involved, but we could only go so far.
I just got the message from Alex. The Tomo's dialogue is called fart4.wav or dot wave. that is so quintessentially Pomo. Okay, let's play it. Oh, do I have to download it? Is it gonna?
Hello? Who's there? Hello? Hello? Who's there? Can anyone help me? Please, come and save me. Please, come and save me. Please, come and save me. You have to help me. There's still time. I think the killer might... Oh, fuck on me. Hold up, sorry. I think the killer might still come back.
See, that's very raw audio. It's like the full series of takes that he did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. He's actually like doing a pretty good job, like relative to like you heard him like break character in the moment there, like just saying like, oh, I need to do it again. Okay, and then this is
it wasn't like total. It wasn't like garbage by any means. It just we were looking for something slightly different for that character.
Yeah.
It wasn't like up to Aria's standard, but it's good for a game jam. Like
Right.
for any other game where we weren't on the cusp of a game that we thought would have a good chance of doing very well in the jam, I would have thrown that in.
Okay, so here is Blaze. I'll turn this up again.
No, it's silly to call on a spirit whose business is finished. Spirits who are at peace have no tie to the physical realm. If you don't have anything to talk about, leave me.
Interesting. So that was 1, and I'm going to click on 3. I'm also morbidly curious about the one that's titled Morbidly German.
To call on a spirit whose business is finished.
That one was my favorite.
Spirits who are at peace have no tie to the physical world.
Interesting. Yeah, giving it a very different performance. And then Overly German. I want to hear this one.
You know, it's silly to call on a spirit whose business is finished. Spirits who are at peace have no tie to the physical realm. If you don't have anything to talk about, leave me. I don't need what you're selling.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
I didn't really mind Blaze's performance. I think with a little bit of a pointer, he could have done it. But the problem is, we didn't have any time. Like at the end, we realized there was like an hour and a half left. It just wasn't going to happen. Cheap's lines were already caught, and so it was like, okay, we're just doing cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely, I was going to say the same thing. Is like I can definitely see that. I mean, if not for Seance, then there's always the possibility of the other game right down the line.
Yeah, and the thing is, I wouldn't have sent you clips if I thought they were completely trash. You know, I'm not going to embarrass someone on the stream. If someone sent me something that's
Right.
like completely terrible, I just wouldn't have sent it to you. So,
Yeah.
like, the fact is, these were thing clips we were considering putting in the game. It's just we ended up finding stuff that just worked.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really glad that it all came together. I'm glad that it got picked up. I'm glad that it seems to be the start of something very promising. I'd love to hear more about that as it progresses. Um, I guess as we sort of start to wind things down, wrap up, is there any other like fun details or something about the story of putting this game together that you just would love for folks to know?
If you can think of anything, you go first because I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to remember the whole weekend. The whole thing was a blur.
Yeah, it was a pretty big blur. No, it felt like if I had known at the beginning of the weekend how much work I was going to have to put into the voice processing and all that stuff, I think it would have freaked me out. But because it just happened organically, it kind of was, well, I'm already here. I'm already, neck deep in stuff. So, like, over the weekend, I really learned how to do like Audacity macro processing for all the audio files in ways that I've never done before. Because initially it was just, yeah, I'll just process everything by hand. But to get like the preverb effects, I had to reverse everything, add reverb, unreverse everything, export again, then do vocal processing. And so I think this was the most I've worked over a Ludum Dare and most I've learned over a Ludum Dare, probably since I started. So not a particular anecdote necessarily, but my big takeaway.
Yeah, for me it's the same. I don't have like an anecdote, but I mean, other than it was pretty funny when we were trying our own hands at like doing the characters, like you and me, like trying to pitch, which I
Yeah.
don't think we have any audio of that. We were just doing it on stream. But the interesting thing for me was that you know this is my first ever visual novel, so for me, I completely didn't realize how much work it was going to be for the writing. It took me 2 days just to do the writing. And in fact, let me get you the sheet of what I had to put together for this. Wait a sec.
Yeah, I'm actually, now that you mention it, I am curious, like, how did you track what voice line was going where? Because I've done a couple of, like, let's call them interactive fiction. They're not visual novels, but they're only game jam scope, so they're not very long in terms of the writing. It all fits. It's all pretty linear.
Yeah, so I just sent you a link there, and if you click check that, um, that's got the first page on it is the character profile. Because I mean, the main thing that sheet is, it's not the sheet I used for internally in the game,
Mm-hmm.
which I did have to pass. Which is funny. I just passed it with I wrote the code inside Excel, but that stuff there is I had to write a sheet because the voice actors didn't know what they were doing and they didn't know
Yeah,
the whole
yeah,
story and stuff. So I had to write descriptions for every single line and like what and put it all together in chunks for each actor and put a character profile for each one so they know what they were actually saying.
yeah.
Um, so that was a ton of work, just organizing it just for what they were going to do. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and then I had to give them all IDs so Atmos could export them with the right number so that it would then feed into the game, which thankfully it just worked. I dropped 410 files into the game and they all just worked. Because if
Yeah,
not,
it was insane how untested all of it was, and it was just we just trust that this process is going to fall into place. We did
yeah.
that for all the audio stuff. We did that for the uh, dynamic music script. I had done that in isolation. I didn't know how it was necessarily going to integrate, and like everything just dropped in, and we didn't have anything explode. So that's a
Yeah,
success.
I mean, it was literally like last 20 minutes of the jam. I made
The
an
game
array
didn't
for
exist.
like
Yeah.
all audio clips and just dropped 410 files in there. And then they were all just, there were three of them, I think, which I actually wrote a bit of code that would detect the ones that were wrong. So we instantly caught the ones that were wrong as well. So, I mean, I did a lot of normally I don't architect so much in jams. I just write messy code. Whereas this time, because it had to all fit together, it had to be architected. So I had to write, I had to write a VN system from scratch that would also, it would work first time without any bugs and accept all the audio and everything plugs into each other. And it all just fell together. I mean, I wrote the whole thing in like 6 hours, and it all just works. And thank God it did, because if it didn't, we'd be screwed. Like we wouldn't have a game. But I mean, that audio stuff was extremely precarious. I mean, as well, SFX wise, I think there's only 6, or maybe even. I think there's only 6 pieces of SFX in the whole game. So there's just an array of sound clips for them, and I just did like play sound 0, play sound 1 in the right place, and then triggered all of Atmos's system in the last like few minutes of the jam, just like, if it's this ghost, play this, change the enum to this in his script, and hope that it worked, and it did work. So just, and the way I wrote it as well was, I mean, I didn't know what the story was. I was making it up as I went along, which was interesting because that made it easier for it to be a game, right? Because I was trying to solve the mystery in my own head. I didn't know how this mystery unfolded, so I was solving it too, and then I just translated that to the player's job. Like the first time I got the art was the first time I knew there was going to be a knife. So because we had Lowry just draw a ghost of knives in the back, which I did not know or expect. In fact, I expected the ghost to be more looking towards the camera and more pleading and more horror. But once it was in, it was in.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, we got these ghosts. We got these knives. Well, let's give knives as a hint. Oh, and maybe the knives have a brand on them, and the brand is Altman, and then we can have a random knife salesman. And so it all came together like that. Like it was working both forward and backwards from the end. It was all together like that.
Well, I mean, that is exactly the kind of thing I wanted to know more about, because it's fascinating to hear like just how this came together.
There's one interesting thing as well, is the Excel spreadsheet that everything in the game is. I mean, so I organized it all in an Excel spreadsheet, which I then split up to put into the Seance things.
Yeah.
Interestingly, for the audio clips, just to make sure they were right, I manually wrote the ID of every single 410, all of them. Like that 3.1.1, that is not programmatically generated. I typed them all, and all those E's, just to make sure they were right, because I didn't want to trust an automated script for that. But then the way it goes into the game, I mean, you could make like a CSV exporter or like parse Excel, or like export it to JSON and then import the JSON. But I mean, we're on jam timelines, so in my Excel spreadsheet, I literally had it write I pasted the entire all the lines into the C# script. So all of the voice lines in the game are in the script itself, and the code was generated by Excel. So like each line, it says, "Hey, equals," then a quotation mark, then the line from the other sheet, then this other quotation mark, then comma, then and then at the top of the sheet, I put the new list equals this thing, or new dictionary, or whatever. And then the bottom of the sheet, I put like curly brace, semicolon. And then I just copied all 6 of the columns, stuck them after each other, pasted them into one giant class, and then it just wrote itself. So like we just knew where to cut corners to save work, but also where to do the engineering so that everything would just work.
Honestly, I mean, so you said we know where to cut corners, and yet I'm looking at this list of all the things that each character says when you present them with stuff that isn't relevant. And I'm just like, oh my god, there's like twice as much dialogue in this game as I realized.
And one of the characters, one of the actresses did like 17 takes for some of these lines. And so it was just, how am I supposed to parse out all of that and find the right take for everything?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a hurdle. And I don't want to lose the best line by not listening to all of it, but you can't listen to. I think I ended up going through. It was over 2 hours of audio, and had to like compare and really make sure that stuff was in place. And actually, I don't think that that counts the extra takes from Chrissy doing Dylan or some of the others. So it was even more than that. But by the end, once we got the last Dylan in place, that code or that audio, it was about an hour of, or about half an hour of audio that I got through all the auditioning and editing and exporting in 45 minutes. Cause I had my workflow down where I could extract, process, export while I was just listening to it. And it's just, I got to just trust my gut, go. We don't have time for anything else. So it was a bit wild, but
Yeah, as well. Normally, I mean, I'd like to sit and go. Oh, I was thinking when I wrote the dialogue, I was thinking the take was more like this. So like some takes are
Mhm.
not as I would have expected them to be.
Right.
But then, you know, I don't have time. I can't have two me's.
Yeah.
So Atmos was the second me, and he was just executively like choosing, trying to interpret the text as I wrote it, even though he's going to figure out the meaning that I wanted to convey at the same time. So yeah, I mean, there's a second level of separation there where the actors are trying to interpret it, then Atmos is trying to interpret my interpretation.
yeah.
I mean, Atmos, did you even know what this like? Could you because you had all the clips? Could you tell what the story was? Because I know a lot of the actors didn't have a fucking clue. Like they were just reading all these lines, and they just seemed like they were disparate lines which didn't make sense together. But because you had all the lines, did you know how this was all going to fit together, or were you just sort of winging it as well?
I was winging it too. Yeah. There were a few things where I could see what order things would tend to happen in, maybe, but just with how nonlinear some of the stuff is, it was just, hey, we're hearing stuff about candles, we're hearing stuff about trucks, we're hearing stuff about, it's all just nonsense. But I just trust that your plan puts them together in an order that makes sense. So yeah,
the first time you played the game,
I got stuck playing the game the first time, and I know you tweak some stuff to make it a bit easier after my first playthrough, but I literally got stuck at a couple points, even though I had listened to everything multiple times and had access to the spreadsheet, and it was still, I didn't have any idea how this was gonna pull together or what it was gonna look like.
Was the story interesting for you at the like? When at the end of it, were you like, "Oh, I didn't expect it to come together like that"? Were you surprised at all by the game, given that you edited all the audio for the game? Is anything like shocking to you, or like, oh, that's why that works? Or yeah,
There was an entire sheep down there. No, I think that there was kind of I always expect that things will pull together, but feel somewhat disconnected in a jam game because that's kind of how it was. So I was definitely surprised that it felt as tight and focused as it was. Especially hearing all these lines in isolation. At one point when Chrissy was doing like the Dylan takes, and he's talking about, oh, I'm down here where it's wet, and just he was cutting a sheep's head off. Like all this stuff that just sounds absurd. How is any of this gonna pull together or have any connection to anything? And just trust the process. I've worked enough with Alex to know that even if an idea is weird or dumb, he's got an idea of how it can pull together and turn into something. So yeah, I just kind of turned the analysis side of my brain off and was just, okay, I'm in mechanics mode for most of it. So that was kind of where I was all weekend. I know we had some of the conversations earlier about plot and structure and stuff, but then once I was dealing with the files themselves, that all went out the window.
I guess it's a bit like trying to read. Do you remember those old make your own adventure games where you open the book and it's like, oh, turn to page 50 or something? Like it must have been just like reading that in chronological order and like trying to figure out like how on earth that works.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are jokes to that effect of like, this is such a crummy book. What's going on here?
Right. Yeah.
But that was literally
Doesn't
your
have
experience.
a flow to it.
It literally is just one of them. That's all this game was. It's one of those books.
Yeah, so we're gonna publish the book form of this and release that, and you can flip all the pages that you want. No.
You got to do that really clever thing where you print the image of a die on the corner of the screen. So when you need to do a dice roll, you just flip through the book and stop at an arbitrary page, and that's how you do your random events.
Ah, that's clever. Yeah, if we ever do like a collector's edition of the game, if we're ever like wildly successful with the full version of the game, we should actually do that. We should just release all the dialogue in chronological order as a make your own adventure book for the original Jam version of Seance with the art.
Page flip for initiative.
Yeah.
Take the entire book, throw it up. If it lands face up, you get first, and if it lands face down, your opponent goes first.
No, that's your result in Ludum Dare at the end. It's like, do you get the gold medal? Just flip the book. Nope.
Oh wow. I mean, so yeah. I mean, thank you both so much for taking the time to like talk through everything. This is exactly what I wanted to hear about. This process, this craziness, this last minute sort of like solutions working. So I super appreciate it, and I really want to hear more about the sequel, I guess, or like spiritual successor to this, as that comes together, if it comes together. And yeah, I'd love to talk about the some of those design challenges as well. So yeah, Alex, Atmospherium, thank you both so much for joining me on the call. Do you have some like social media channels that where folks can find you?
I'm Alex Rose Games on Twitter, and my EO is Alex Rose. And you can see all my 40 odd games or something. I've done every Ludum Dare since LD25, and I've got a lot of Twitter followers. Well, not a mega huge amount, but a decent amount. But I don't have a lot of itch followers, despite winning lots of Ludum Dare medals. So follow me on itch. Why do I have no itch followers? You all have itch accounts. Follow me on itch.
Yeah, and then I'm Atmospherium on itch and Twitter as well. That's most of where I'm active. So you can find me on those places.
Oh, please feel free
Or
to drop the
SoundCloud,
links.
Bandcamp as well, I guess.
Was that correct? Was that actually your SoundCloud there?
Yes.
I'll drop that
So
one in
yeah,
chat.
SoundCloud might be good. I post a bunch of stuff there, so bunch of random shenanigans.
Yeah, if you look on there, it's pretty much like all of our jam games ever, right? Apart from the ones we don't talk about in there, right?
And then the odd metal track or two and whatever else I'm working on. So
nice. All right. Well,
it's funny seeing like metal and then just like Rude Bear and then metal and some more Rude Bear.
Yeah. So there's a couple hundred tracks for you to not listen to. There's not a shortage of options there.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Keeps going. Well, yeah. If
I mean, we're only back a year in jams right now. That's the last 3 jams or something, isn't it? Like, or maybe 4 jams. So yeah, I mean, and we've been doing this for 10 years, so you'd have to go pretty far. Oh, the aliens! That one was good. Alien.
Yeah, I'm scrolling past all kinds of random stuff now. But yeah, thank you so
and
much.
it varies wildly in quality, so don't feel like any of that's worth listening to. But
well, if you have any recommendations, I mean, do you have like a playlist of some of your favorite tracks?
Oh my god, we should have him play Look at My Medals. That's so perfect for this, because we've actually finally won 4 medals. So there's a track where that's actually there, right? The refurbished OST. So there's a joke that we have, a running joke going, that Sheep Illusion has multiple times won the humor medal, and we've come 3rd, 2nd, 9th, 7th, 11th, 13th. We've never won the gold humor medal. And so in that game, Sheep Illusion is a character, and he has a house, and he has all his medals on the wall, and on his radio he's playing a song about how funny he is and how many medals he has. And yeah, you should definitely just play Look at My Medals, because finally we get to like celebrate in like Sheep Illusion's medals there.
I finally tied Sheep Illusion and total medal count this Ludum Dare, so I'm feeling good about it.
I think my humor is the best kind of humor. Just look at my medals. 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 Oh, sorry. I was just laughing about my own games. They're just so funny.
Okay. Oh man, I'm sure it's a like it's the best kind of in joke because it's the one that you and your community and your group of friends are the ones who like. I appreciate you explaining it now because it is very amusing.
Yeah,
We embrace
there's
the
no
stupidity
context.
of it.
People are just like, "What is going on here?" at all. But like to us, it's just so funny having like. There's a bit later on in it where he's like, "Oh yeah, my Loom Dare medals. I've got this one that's gold in humor, and this one I think that's gold in humor. And what's this one? Oh, gold in humor and stuff like that. It's yeah. There's all these little things. I think maybe the best track you've ever made is the Aliens. Like there's a game where it I mean it works best in tandem with a game as well. But essentially, what's the name of the track?
Uh, aliens, aliens, aliens. Because I'm good at naming things.
Yeah, so
Uh,
there's this like we did a flat Earth game where the Earth's rotating and stuff,
I remember
and
playing
you
that one.
build houses there, and then suddenly, exactly timed with the audio cue of the game, the whole thing becomes a hard metal song screaming about how aliens are invading, and then suddenly like pyramids pop up and dinosaurs start invading as well. It's that one third from the right there, flat Earth, not another Rubber game. It's top row, third from the right. Um,
Oh yeah. Here we go.
yeah,
Because I did actually play this one on the stream. I don't know if we spoke about it at the time though, but I definitely remember
yeah, but
the aliens track clicking in and
yeah, we got some really good reactions to that. Just people like thinking they know what's going on. I mean, the game isn't that good, but just the part where suddenly the aliens, aliens, aliens. It just. I mean, we won the audio and the humor medal for that. We came third in humor. We came first in audio for it. But you did a really good job. Like, not only that, it's a really good. It's a nice song. It sounds good as well. It's a really sick song. But it's also hilarious.
I do think it's funny though that like of all the games of yours that I played before, you've got so many Rude Bear games, and that's the one I played. Was the one that's not a Rude Bear game.
right.
It's getting increasingly harder to find Rude Bear games nowadays. I mean, look at you got a Rad Boar game, a Road Bird game, the 4 games that aren't Rude Bear games at all. It's you know, it's tough getting a gig in this legendary economy of your Rude Bear right now.
Well, I mean, I think it's good if you're exploring like a greater variety of. I'm saying that, but like I haven't played a single Rude Bear game. It looks like the Rude Bear games themselves are themselves a significant variety of genres, and
Yeah, exactly. Like the point of Ruba was always that every single game would be like its own. I wanted every single game I do to be completely different. Now, over the years, obviously, some of them are a little bit similar, but like there are a few platformers at this point. But at the same time, like we really wanted them to like there's only so far you can go in tone with Rubear. Like you couldn't do Seance with Rubear because it's too goofy. Like we can't do something serious. So as soon as we're going for like a serious game, I'm happy to just drop the Rubear stuff and maybe keep him as an Easter egg. Um, the point where we did Radbor and Roadbird though, I just wanted a little change of scene for a bit. I just wanted to do something that wasn't Rubear, but was in the Rubear universe. But it's essentially Rubear games, though.
you missed the opportunity to have Rude Bear carved on the Ouija board.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have it when you type in Rubear's name, then it would summon him and he'd just growl at you. But we just didn't have time to do the art, and
No.
then I didn't want to ask Lowry after the jam ended, like, "Hey, do you want to promote my Rubear games in my game? Here, draw some free art." Like it's different when it's for a jam and when it's like, "Hey, like do a little Easter egg post
Yeah.
release." So I didn't like push her into it.
Yeah. Well, I think it would have been a lot of effort for an Easter egg, and you would have had to know to type it as well. So
Someone did type it on stream though, and was very disappointed when they couldn't see Rude Bear. They were like, "Oh, we're docking your
Yeah.
pics for that."
A couple people did.
Yeah, we should have really got Rude Bear in that, but we didn't. Oh well.
We had also joked around about being able to like summon the pig or whatever.
Oh, and some of the bloopers as well. We had a bunch of bloopers that Chrissy wanted to go in, and we were gonna like use that blooper, and it just puts all the bloopers in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I almost wonder, like, just going back to the spreadsheet that was full of all these things that are unique responses to different things that are nonetheless not the right answer. I'm wondering if, like, did you try to inject any hints into those lines?
Sometimes. Was there are some where, you know, if you ask Tamsin about pigs, then she'll just say she's a vegan or something. Like there are some that totally are. In fact, in the beginning, it was meant to be that the detective would be more hinterific. You know, like you'd ask him things and he'd give you straight up like easier hints about it. Right. But then in the panic of the jam, I ended up doing some ones where he literally just makes little jokes and does not help you whatsoever, and so you kind of get used to the detective not actually being that helpful.
And then Sonny started throwing in jokes on his own as well.
Oh yeah, I mean he edited some of the lines. Like they weren't all the final lines. Like I told them they could ad lib to some extent, and so Sonny. I mean, when he said there's one where he's like, "Oh, taking a sheep, that's quite a rare crime. You'd think you'd hear if someone took a sheep. Hey, I think I gotta go take a sheep." Like he put that in, and he did the other one he put in was like, "Oh, son, lots of people have sons, you know. I'm a son. Oh, it's like my dad was a son and stuff like that. Like and so he updated it, and so I backported them into the game. Although Chrissy also did them. I don't know if she changed the line in the sheets, but I wasn't aware that she changed them. So I found out, like, as I tell you, we threw the lines in 5 minutes before the jam finished, right? So I wasn't even aware that she changed the dialogue until the game was already out and the dialogue didn't match the subtitles. But people like that. They're like, "Oh, it's cool. It's kind of like ad libbed." You know, they thought it was cool that it was ad libbed, and it was clearly ad libbed.
Nice. All right. Well, I think we should wrap things up. Thank you so much for participating in such a long and thorough interview. It's been a lot of fun to talk about the game, and I think this is
thank
now,
you
like...
so much for having us. And I'm because I want to see. Assuming we've not, I'm very very sorry to the other team that we've just displaced.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I was sort of keeping a typing conversation going with them, and they're cool with postponing to next week. So,
and is that the Throws team?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, we were before the jam ended. We had kind of had in our group chat what games we were expecting to be at the top, and Throws was top of my list, and it was really cool to see them get recognition as well.
But if you
looking forward to what they're doing next.
If you want to have a 2-hour interview, though, you've really got to come second place, right? The third place is not going to cut it.
That's completely how that works, Alex.
Yeah, it varies, you know, sometimes.
Do you think the Throws team hate us right now? Like, took our and took our interview space.
I'm fine getting a rivalry going with them. They seem like they'd be fun to have a rivalry with.
That should be quite fun. We can have like a Drake Kendrick thing going on, but we're Kendrick.
Yes, always Kendrick.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining me. I think we're going to wrap up there, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to next time.
See you. Bye.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Likewise. Thanks.